What's up, everybody? It's waba, and I just wanted to make a video talking about some unique items that I think are really good early league and for leveling that maybe you do know about, maybe you do not. There's not a lot here. It's mostly some of my go-to unique items for leveling. But just in case you are a newer player, or there are just so many unique items in Path of Exile, it's just good to keep these in mind because they're really powerful for what they are, and usually they're pretty accessible. And when I say they're pretty accessible, I mean they're actually super accessible at any time during the league. Now, this is more beneficial if you are a trade league player because you can trade for these early on. You find one chaos, you could just get this item, and it's a pretty good bet for you. So, go ahead and start with the first one, the Deerstalker unique boots. Now, I've been using Deerstalker unique boots for a really long time, and especially with the recent trap rework in 3.3, they're probably going to be quite a bit more popular than they usually have. But the good news is they're so common that it doesn't necessarily matter. But you know, they give you 30% movement speed after you've thrown a trap, and they give you a free 5 link more or less. So I've actually used this to like level 80 before, just leveling. I mean, this was obviously way back when, but they are still really powerful. You could use this as a trap build if you are using if you're using a trap that isn't a primary trap, or you can use this as a totem build as well. This is a really good way to supplement totems while leveling, because you could still deal damage with traps, even if you are spec'd into Ancestral Bond. So, Deerstalker's really strong, pseudo 5 link, and they give you trap throwing speed right now, which is definitely one of the changes to traps that people are kind of on the fence about. The fact that you do not have nearly as much trap throwing speed as you used to. So the second item is the Eclipse Solaris Crystal Wand. Now, obviously, it is a wand, so you don't have access to that good of movement skills with wands. You know, you're looking at using Lightning Warp and Flame Dash just to traverse ledges and things like that. In which you have to have like a Quicksilver and a Silver Flask and then as much movement speed on your boots as possible. But Eclipse Solaris, other than that, gives you a lot of crit. It gives you a lot of crit multi against blinded enemies. So it actually gives you a lot of crit against blinded enemies, and it gives you crit multi just in general. But it also says nearby enemies are blinded. Now, this is usable at level 45, which is pretty important to note because you could use this right before you go into the Act 5 Kitava fight, which is generally what I would consider the biggest like build check, gear check fight in the game, like pre-Act 6, which kind of makes sense, but everything else is pretty straightforward. But Act 5, especially when you fight Kitava, having everything blinded around you is really beneficial, especially when you are a spellcaster. So, Eclipse Solaris, definitely another good one. So, the next one I'm going to talk about, and I haven't really used these, but every single time I see them, you know, they're something that I consider using, but it is the 3-step assault Sha Green Boots. Now, they give you 100% increased evasion while you have Onslaught. So if you're using a Silver Flask, they give you quite a bit of evasion. They also give you a decent amount of life and 25% movement speed and 10% chance to dodge spells while you are phasing. So you pair this with a Quartz Flask, a Silver Flask, and all of a sudden you have a pretty decent amount of dodge, spell dodge, and then movement speed on top of that. The only downside is they are a little bit higher level, but for how much you could purchase them for at the start of the league, I think that they're pretty powerful and something to always keep in mind. The next thing I would talk about, and this isn't so much leveling, I just kind of want to touch on this because I think this is actually really good, but it hasn't really been that popular in the past, but Kong Ming's Stratagem. This is usable at level 41. Whenever a trap is triggered, you get level 20 Fog of War. And level 20 Fog of War obviously gives you a smoke cloud, which blinds enemies with it. Another way to get blind, similar to the Eclipse Solaris. But on top of that, It also says 30% increased fire damage with hits and ailments against blinded enemies. This would pair really well with any fire-based trap. And then the biggest thing about this is 30% reduced spell damage taken from blinded enemies. And that is actually really, really big. It even has some endgame implications. And I believe people do use this for that specifically. The only downside is it is no block chance, but if you are utilizing acrobatics, then this isn't too big of a deal, even though acrobatics doesn't remove all of your block, but it removes enough. So Kong Ming's stratagem, I think, is pretty good. Moving on to a couple of chess pieces. The first one that I will talk about is Ambush Charge. Now, this has been like the vendor unique. Like, if there's a poster child for vendor uniques, it is Ambush Charge. But outside of the memes, it's actually pretty good. You could use it at level 43. It gives you all resist. It has a decent life roll on it, and it gives you 2% life regen if you've been hit recently. And you pair that with endurance charges that you get whenever you take a critical strike, and it's a pretty good go-to chest, honestly. It gives you a fair amount of armor, gives you some energy shield. You could easily purchase this for 1 alch and 4 link it and just use it. It's not bad, it's just something to keep in mind, Ambush Charge. Another one, even lower level than this, and I kind of hesitate about talking about this, but it is Ice Tomb. The nice thing about Ice Tomb is it does upgrade into a crystal vault, but Ice Tomb gives you a lot of intelligence, it gives you a lot of strength, it gives you a lot of cold resist, and it gives you cannot be chilled, which is pretty strong. It obviously has some benefits in fights such as the Act 6 fight with that big crab, I forgot his name, the Brine King. Yeah, it's really good for the Brine King fight. Cannot be chilled. Obviously, there are other ways you can get cannot be chilled or cannot be frozen, but Ice Tomb being such a low level and given so much cold resist and, you know, the strength and intelligence is pretty good. But then it also does upgrade into the Crystal Vault, which that's good as well, but I just don't think you would continue using it beyond that point. But it does give you 20% of physical damage from hits taken as cold damage, which is pretty good. And then the last chess piece that I'm going to talk about is the Restless Ward. Now, the Restless Ward is a much higher level chess piece, but it gives you a lot of utility in the charges. Now, it makes it to where you have 100% increased duration on your Endurance, Frenzy, and Power Charge, which is really, really good. It's especially good for boss fights. It gives you a decent life roll. It gives you a mana roll in the Implicit. Gives you a fair amount of evasion, a little bit of energy shield, and then on top of that, this is the one thing that I wish that they would kind of adjust. I wish it gave you something for power charges, but it doesn't. But it gives you 1% increased movement speed for Frenzy Charge. That should honestly be changed to like 3% in my opinion. But it gives you 20 to 30 flat life regen per second per endurance charge. This is pretty good, especially if you are maintaining your endurance charges with Enduring Cry, or you have other ways to get it. The flat regen, especially at lower life values, is really, really good and will keep you pretty safe. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about those items, you know, kind of help newer players, you know, certain unique items to look out for. You know, maybe you could figure out a way to utilize this in any of your builds in the upcoming Challenge League in 3.3 or beyond. They're all pretty strong. They're kind of overshadowed by everyone else saying, get a Belly the Beast, get a Doriana's Catalyst, you know, get Aziri Steps. But otherwise, they're still really, really good. And, you know, I think it's worth pointing it out that they are definitely good items to use. So let me know what you think of this video in the description below if you'd like to see more videos about this. I'm thinking about doing some videos where I talk about items a little bit more in depth and what you could do with them. I'm probably going to be releasing one actually later today talking about the new unique shield, Zeal something. But yeah, thanks guys, see you later.